Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Let's Play of Wario World for the Nintendo GameCube. So, last time we have managed to able to get the game started while going through the first level in the game in the Excitement Central world. So today for this episode is the fact that I think we might actually finish up with Excitement Central while going through the second level as well as the forms of the first true boss fight. Well, not necessarily the first true boss, but to be more accurate, let's just say the actual boss battle in the end. It's hard to explain about the forms of some situations like so, but even then, we'll have to cope with it, I suppose. So even then, let's head into the forms of the second level in Wario World. Now it appears to be by the forms of, well, Greenhorn Ruins. So, you know how it goes. Basically, we need to go through a serious amount of smashing blocks and all the other jazz. So even then though, and also I've recognized that particular music from before, because if you couldn't tell already, that was before when Wario Land The Shake Dimension, aka Wario Land Shake It, for those who lived in North America. That particular music will heavily borrowed back in that game, but usually takes place in some sort of like a neon lights kind of city level. So even then, at least I'm glad that particular music will make its return in the forms of Wario Land 5, aka Wario Land Shake It, or in this case, Wario Land The Shake Dimension, which, that reminds me, where in the world is the next Wario Land game supposed to be at? I mean, we have not seen a new Wario Land game for ages, man, like even for a decade. Please Nintendo, please try to announce a new Wario platformer game for once, ever since on the Nintendo Wii, even something like that. But I really can't guarantee about the fact that they're probably not going to do a Wario platformer game on the actual 3DS, because at this point in time, due to the poor sales of, specifically Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey package, it does not sell well. So even then, we'll get to that whenever we get to it, though, at some point, at some form or another, I should say. And, basically, we actually come across into certain segments of the levels that, with the actual, twirling or spiraling around the actual enemies and everything, this is mandatory if you really want to progress for each of the level. Like, even then, if you're first time playing the game and do not exactly know what you're doing, well, pay attention to the forms of the spriteling's hints and tips and tricks, because either way, then you do realize about the fact that how the game's mechanics works. So even then, I just found that not much of a problem. So even then, yeah. Oh yeah, at some point, at some form or another, in certain 100% completions, there's also another bonus type areas, which this time usually takes place in somewhat of a similar platforming segments as the forms of how it does it in Super Mario Sunshine, even though it does remind me of that game specifically, even though except the fact that we don't have a flood contraption with us. Especially noticeable, we not take control of Mario, instead it was just, Wario, because that's the name of the title after all. So, basically, that those particular challenges like this can sometimes may throw you off at points, even for the trickier, difficult platforming departments. But thankfully, though, you don't die if you fall off. You just have to go all the way back to the very beginning of that particular, well, the actual obstacle challenges and all that stuff. Even though it's kind of similar to those puzzle rooms from the likes of, you're trying to able to simply ground pound on them. But in forms of like the platforming segments, if you go through them, you must able to grab the enemy and then ground pound at the same time, because unlike the forms of the actual crossed signed little ground pound signs, where you can just simply just use the ground pound. But in some cases like these ones, you have to grab one enemy, and then as a result you can able to actually use the ground pound at the same time. So definitely keep that in mind, especially noticeable how the fact that, well, if you really want to 100% the game like I was going to be doing right here, especially noticeable for the majority of November to the forms of December around that time. Well, we don't know exactly when we're going to finish up with Wario World per se, but even then, we'll find things out during the future time and onwards. So, but hopefully though, the actual uploading departments will go a lot faster than they intend to. So, anyways, I'm going to be grabbing those coins. It doesn't really matter if I get hit most of the time, even though, we'll admit though, the invincibility frames doesn't last for long. It only lasted for about let's just say a second to react to in time. Let's see. I think it's like 1 second. Well, 2 seconds to be more exactly, because even then, if you keep on like walking around with spikes or something like that, I just don't know. I just don't freaking know. But anyway though, and I messed my jumps right there, but that's fine, because even then, thankfully though, you don't have to die or anything like that if you fell off, even though it takes you to the actual, creepy, cavern section where you have to, like, hopefully, God forbid, able to actually avoid a lot of those dangerous enemies in mind, so... But before we continue things on, though, on the other hand, though, there is something I definitely need to go from here, though, but then again, sometimes, though, you can't really tell what you're going to be jumping onto, but even then, though, it doesn't bother me too much, though, because it's not that far from the... Oh. Okay, seems the enemies just managed to disappear. Okay. Whatever. Anyways, though, so let's grab that treasure right here. See, even then, though, we got 2 treasures so far. Well, for the most part, anyway, though. But then again, if we manage to activate most of the actual colored switches, this means we have to go the amount of backtrack you have to go through. So even then, that's the thing I liked about this game more than the forms of how it does it in Wario Master of Disguise on the DS, because, well, at least the controls does work pretty well, especially noticeable with the actual GameCube controller, which I always adore. But the problem with Wario Master of Disguise to me, though, is just that it's just the controls, man. It's just way too clunky. Like, for instance, I have to use the directional pad for, like, they use walk, jump, and crouch, and all that stuff, while you simply use the stylus at all times for the likes of certain transformations, certain minigame challenges, and some trivia aspect of that specific stuff. And it's just like, ugh, can we just move on, please? So anyways, at some points in throughout the levels is that we actually come across into those weird looking mid-bosses, or in this case mini-bosses as to be more specifically, which this one right here was actually known as Gem-Bodied Creature, which in order to actually attack him or deal the damage on these mini-bosses, you can see, basically you have to use the actual spin attack, and then you just simply hope for the best. And every once in a while, though, we actually come across into those shortcuts if you, like, can't be bothered able to walk back onto the normal path. But it's a great way you can able to do that, especially if you, like, missing some of these treasures or certain collectibles, most notably with, of course, the red crystals, or, yeah, just the red diamonds itself in this game usually calls it, and, you know, treasures, as well as the forms of, well, to be more specifically, the actual golden pieces of the statue, then that way you can able to deal with that justice from here. So, yeah, so obviously today's day is the forms of the 4th of November today in 2019. Not much else has been going on at this point today, but apart from the fact that I'm very glad that I'm actually going to be coming back into this though, because as I said this before, since during forms of a double uploads during yesterday's video due to the actual Wi-Fi connection issues on our, you know, computer for that time. Even though, if you couldn't tell already, my voice is still a little bit more, you know, just a little bit more cranked up at points, probably because of our fact that I'm still not exactly 100% better yet, though. But hopefully by that time, whenever we continuously doing Wario World, as well as the forms of other Let's Plays all in mind. And I should probably point things out is that at some point in next weekend or so, or no, not next weekend, because that belongs to the forms of Mario Kart 8, / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, mind you, is that, at certain points in next week or something like that, I think we'll probably let, Piglet will able to finish up with, Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz before we're able to actually move on to this, you know, the next set of Let's Plays in mind, because, you know, we just want to get these Let's Plays finished and done before, you know, 2020 will be a horizon, or in this case, will be on its way, I should say, but, either way, though, I just want to point things out to you guys out there. So anyways, let's ground pound here, so that we can able to see the actual puzzle segment. So, alright, so this is how it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to work. So basically, we need to utilize the actual long jump, or some sort of like a fist jump, but as you can see right there, I accidentally managed to hit the actual moving block to that, on the right side of the fence. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have to exit out for this segment here, and then come back for it, because, yeah, if you somehow messed up the actual puzzles, well, you can try again at that point anytime you like, because even then, that if you see the shiny parts, this means you have not actually collected everything. So, because if it stops shining, this means you actually collected everything. So keep that in mind, because even then... Oh, I was supposed to able to just do that. Okay. I did not know it to begin with, because even then it's been about, you know, quite a few days since I actually came back to this game for, you know, just 3 days ago or something. So, or perhaps even for, let's just say, a month or two. But even then, I will have to leave things up as it goes by. So, man, I just really love this music, by the way, because then again, I've almost recognized it since during the next Wario game, which is of course Wario Land: The Shake Dimension for the Nintendo Wii. That usually, you know, borrowed this theme back on the forms of the different world theme. So yeah, I'm very glad that used to be the case though, because at first I thought it was a little bit, you know, then again, skeptical at first whenever I first saw this on the actual game footage or something. But then during 2018, as I said before, I managed to pick up the game, and I actually really enjoyed it. Even though it only cost me for about £20 on eBay back in during the forms of 2018, whenever I got this game alongside with Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 on the PlayStation 3, just for controversy and stuff, despite how the fact that the PS3 version of Sonic 06 will be the worst of the two, because of the frame rate on cutscenes didn't go well enough, as far as I'd like to say for this matter, and also lack of trophy support, and also same applies for, well, let's just say no DLC content on the American copy, but luckily in our country though, at least we actually got ourselves DLC for it. So what's wrong with the forms of the North Americans? This seems to be far lacking when it comes to DLC department. I mean, can you explain this to me why? But I digress. And of course, since I can't able to actually do that though, because sometimes if I was gonna able to actually just try to be like super precise with the actual spin attack along with the enemy itself, sometimes though you always have to curve with to be more accurate though. That sometimes though that the invisible walls doesn't seem to allow me to able to progress at some form or another. Oh yeah, keep that in mind, is the fact that when you come towards those segments like these, the actual spring placement is always random every time you're able to revisit the actual bottomless pit, you know, creepy looking section right off the bat, because even then, you know, because it doesn't matter what world you're in, or any levels I should say, then obviously it doesn't really matter if the actual spring placement is actually a little bit random, so, or randomly placed I should say, so even then, I don't mind about it too much though, because even then, as long as you can able to keep on using the actual, the charge attack or anything like that, then you should able to actually bust out as many of those blocks as you could. So even then, although the only thing you need to avoid though is of course these little pesky bombs, and especially noticeable with those, I don't know how you call those weird enemies in this game though, because I know for the fact that because of how the fact that this usually becomes like a some sort of like a well, in most other bosses though, whenever we get to later on for the sake of this Let's Play though, which we probably not going to mention about that during later on though per se, but then again, we've only just got started for this though, so even then I just want to point things out, so... Oh yeah, something's worth mentioning also is the fact that one thing that me and Sylvester has not even mentioned about this before, that the most recent Let's Play we've ever done, back in June 2014, that the game called Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games, that particular Let's Play we've done ever since in 2014. Unfortunately though, that particular original Let's Play of that game is no longer in our channel. This is pretty much obvious at this point. Well, the quality itself is pretty good, but I will admit though the commentary is pretty terrible, so even then, we figured we might actually do a redo Let's Play of that game whilst, at the same time when Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, even though despite the fact that Sochi 2014 was an Olympic Winter Games per se, but whenever we get to next year, specifically in 2020, hopefully we might as well do a redo Let's Plays of both, let's just say, both Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games to start off with, and eventually London 2012 Olympic Games, while at the same time we're about to be doing Tokyo 2020 Olympics during around the same time as when Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics is going to be hosting on the exact same day, which is of course is going to be on the 24th of July all the way up to the front of the 9th of August, so fast worth mentioning because even then I'm just pretty excited to actually just able to replay those games again. Although the only thing it might not count though is the actual handheld versions of the games themselves, specifically the original Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, as well as the forms of the Winter Olympic Games, neither in London 2012, and especially noticeable with Rio 2016. So because of that though, I'm pretty much going to be comfortable with the console entries in the series, because, well, the console entries I always enjoy playing, so first we're bringing it up, so even then, oh yeah. Something tells me about the fact that with some platforming sections like these, the only time you will die though in these segments like so is that if you run out of health. I missed my jump and he ran down there, or he's standing right down there. This game lies to me, man. I mean, it takes away some of the time, but at least even then though, at least I'm perfectly fine when it comes to like restarting on that particular ending, or the beginning portion I should say, so there's not much else I can say. So even then, let's grab the actual red diamond, as well as the another golden fragment piece, as you can tell. And it looks like we're almost nearly towards the end of this level already, despite the fact that with the amount of backtrack we need to keep on using it for. Oh yeah, at certain points throughout the level, every now and then, is the fact that we actually come across into one mini sections where you basically have to do like a, let's just say it's more likely the optional thing you can do by simply able to beat the crap out of those enemies throughout the actual time limit. But it doesn't matter how much enemies you're beating throughout, so it's just a matter of the forms of likely, if you manage to beat too much enemies in during forms of the actual arena, then the more coins you're able to own. So even then, I was worth to able to point things out. So even then, I definitely recommend you do that though, because then again, this game is so generous when it comes to like giving a lot of gold coins and all that stuff, which I sort of appreciate it, because even then, something to keep that in mind is that if you get a game over, and if you really want to able to continue things on with the actual levels themselves, well, you can just simply spend your coins to able to actually bring yourselves back to life again. So at least unlike the forms of other Wario Land games, specifically, you know, the original Wario Land game, as well as the forms of Wario Land 4, and especially noticeable with Wario Land The Shake Dimension. At least in Shake Dimension managed to give you some checkpoints throughout the levels, but certain games like Wario Land 4, if you somehow die and you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the level because there aren't any checkpoints around, which I might be okay with, because I'm up for a challenge of that though, and I've noticed that Wario Land 4 was actually one of the best games of the entirety of the Wario Land series, as far as I'm most likely concerned with, but then again, I haven't really played that much of Wario Land 4 recently, just because, well, I was busy playing some other Wario games, including this one, so even then, well, despite the fact that I've recently managed to complete this game not too long ago, so even then, alongside with Wario Land 2 for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color, so, but the only games I still need to complete though is, of course, the most recent Wario platformer game, which is, of course, the Shake Dimension, just because there's so much to do in the Shake Dimension, like the treasures, as well as the missions, and even especially noticeable with the levels themselves, so. But either way though, we'll point things out whenever we get to the actual Let's Play of Wario Land The Shake Dimension for sure in the future. Well, at least we still got Yoshi's Crafted World until next year, so even then that can usually wait. So, and speaking of other Let's Plays department, that originally I did say back in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix Let's Play, despite I need to get back into it, eventually I discovered is the fact that I've managed to able to change, change decisions for a moment, because if you couldn't tell, I was originally trying to able to be planned to do the Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix Let's Play, but it turns out I actually just managed to change it back to the forms of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, because, well, at the end of the day, I just feel like trying to do these Kingdom Hearts games Let's Play wise by simply going through release by release standpoint. Well, the only game exception is, of course, Chain of Memories, the original game on the GBA, just because, well, first off, I don't able to actually access to the emulator just yet though, and second, well, I feel like the actual cutscenes in a remake is actually a little bit more better, but aside from that though, well, at least we can still technically do Chain of Memories in the future, but I think I probably should stuck with the forms of release by release Kingdom Hearts games for surely, when it comes to the forms of doing Let's Plays department and all that stuff. But, that's just how it is for my cup of tea experience though, just because, well, usually technically speaking that Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories takes place after the events of the original game, and before Kingdom Hearts 2 exists, so when it comes to the actual storytelling, so, a little bit confusing I know, but even then, no, that's just how it is for me, so, especially because of how the fact that I'm just really so desperate to able to actually play, you know, Kingdom Hearts 2 as a Let's Play channel, but on the PlayStation 4 format, because the problem with the PlayStation 3 version is the bad loading times and all that stuff, and that's why I'm probably not gonna do the PS3 version of that particular Let's Play of that game, because of the bad load times in mind, so I just want to point things out, so... Oh yeah, there's one thing I need to point things out, is the fact that, you know these attachable balloons, as you can see right there? As you can tell, because I'm pretty much missing one treasure left. Well, luckily for you, you can able to actually transport back into the very beginning of the level, and then trying to able to actually backtrack for those certain segments, and then... yeah, you can able to actually just, well, replay the stage again, but you can able to actually grab the treasure from that way, or certain missing collectibles you're actually missing out since the forms of the first run-through, so... But the obvious noticeable thing about this, though, is the fact that you have to go through the entire level again, just in case if you really want to take on the forms of the next boss, so... even then, it's a little bit annoying, but either way, though, at least I don't mind about this too much, because most of the levels, well... the only exception is, of course, at the very end of the game, though, which we're probably not gonna point things out just yet, though, because even then, you know, we've already just got started with the actual Wario World game itself, but, hey, still. And that's as far as I can usually say about this point, I'm afraid, guys, because even then, despite with my illness is still continuing, though, especially because every now and then now, well, in addition with the actual cold nose I have, in addition with those things, I also managed to grow myself the, let's just say a bad cough still, and as well as the forms of a pretty sore throat, so... but then again, some days usually happens like that, but hopefully until the forms of the future days, well, specifically what if I get back into this, or Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, it really depends on the forms of the actual schedules and all that such, but, we're really hoping we can able to finish those Let's Plays before, you know, 2020 awaits us, so... well, at least in during time, though, because even then, that... well, I'm just... at the end of the day, ever since in 2012, I'm actually kind of sick of, like, holding the actual Let's Plays up for the longest amount of time before the new year is actually going to be started, so even then, we feel like we're doing the same formula as the forms of 2011, despite with, the old Let's Plays has now been removed due to how bad the quality went. And second of all is the actual commentary is a little bit more better than in forms of how it does it on the previous attempts on the actual past. So, especially noticeable how the fact that I remember playing Mario Party 3 as a Let's Play channel and all that stuff, and I remember that my dialogue is actually didn't go so well. So even then, well, we don't know exactly, we might actually do a, well... we thought to ourselves we might as well do a redo Let's Plays of certain Mario Party games. Well, the other exception is 9, an Island Tour, Star Rush, and the Top 100, and then most recently Super Mario Party, so as well as bring things up. Alright, so here we go, folks. Here's the next boss in this game, which appears to be by the forms of Seek the Arm Monster, which is kind of a weird name. But even then, basically in this entire boss, as you can see right there, you always have to wait until his attack finishes, until he decides to show up, and as a result, you can just simply beat the crap out of him, and that's all you really have to do in this entire boss battle. So, eventually at this point, when it gets to a later boss fight, it might be pretty dang similar, but whenever we get to the main boss fights, as far as I'm aware, or to be more specifically, the actual likely, well, we'll explain more on that until whenever we, you know, come across into that certain stuff. So, yeah, for the most part, you just have to keep on attacking him before the actual attacks finish and ramps to repeat. So, oh yeah, and also because of how the fact that I got this alongside with Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 on the PlayStation 3, alongside with the forms of Kirby Air Ride for the GameCube, because, well, I just feel like trying that game out, and I actually do enjoy it. Well, it might actually took me a lot of practice on that game, though, because... wow, this is an entirely different experience for me, because I definitely heard of that game before, back in a long time ago, but never get a chance to own it, because, well, the actual game is, like, pretty expensive, just like Mario Superstar Baseball. I'm pretty sure it's because of the actual selling points didn't go that well, but usually compared to Wario World though, it does really good, even for commercial success. So either way, I just want to point things out. So anyways, we're pretty much done with the forms of the second level, which is Greenhorn Ruins. So far I'm actually really enjoying this still. So yeah, 2 levels done, and once we're done 2 levels, well, in addition with grabbing all the golden fragment pieces, or the golden statues I should say, then we're able to actually get ourselves a full heart, which means we now have 5 heart containers. So, and also we can now actually access to the actual main boss on that particular world. So I figure we might as well do that right now. But during it at some point in certain parts of the actual Let's Play, some levels might take a little bit longer to complete, but hopefully we're able to actually complete this world in time. So here we go, on to the actual boss, fighting against with Dinomighty's Showdown. So even then, here we have Dinomighty himself. And yeah, that's how the actual cinematic actually holds up. So even then, it kind of reminds me like Yoshi for some reason, but except a little bit more threatening than the forms of how it does it for Yoshi was. But despite that, Yoshi was not in the game though, but I digress. So the entire boss fight can be summed up as like this. Basically, you need to distract him while simply able to actually hit him. And then at certain points, there's actually a little bit of a sticky glue globe, which basically you must able to get attached into it. And every once in a while though, ground pound on top of its head. And then when you've done so already, you can either throw it away, you know, Dinomighty onto the actual out of the arena, or you can able to actually do with the actual ground pound technique, just like I do here. So it really doesn't matter which attacks you could able to do with it. But honestly though, this boss is really easy though. But eventually at this point until the future bosses might be slightly similar, but then again, we'll point things out whenever we get to the actual future worlds of this game. So yeah, you get the idea for that. So, and at certain points in certain boss fights though, is the fact that yeah, it might actually contains like coins and all that stuff. So as long as you be fast enough, and you would able to actually beat him down, no problem. But either way though, that's the entirety of this boss fight. So even then, not much of a challenge though. It's actually pretty easy if you get the hang of it though. But the only attacks you need to worry about is of course the actual shockwave attacks, as well as the forms of likely just, you know, avoid his attacks obviously. Because if you somehow get hit by certain bosses, well, basically it gets stunned for about a few seconds notice. So, but even then, that's the only thing you need to keep that in mind though, because even then you do have health bars, so or in this case you do have hearts and all that stuff. Now I think you really definitely need to recommend, especially noticeable towards the end of the game, that you always have to recommend you go after all of these golden statue pieces, because the more you grab them, then the more easier it becomes for certain boss fights. So oh yeah, there's one little thing I forgot to mention about this ever since the very beginning of this Let's Play. The fact of the matter is though, is that you can actually push the L button that allows Wario to do some sort of a vacuum cleaner ability, which it kind of reminds me like you know, Kirby's ability to able to swallow enemies, but except rather than just swallowing up some enemies, instead you're able to actually swallow up the actual coins. So definitely a lot more of an easier way to grab those coins for sure. But even then, there's something I forgot to mention about that. So, and after we're done with the forms of Dinomighty boss fight, is that about the fact that we actually got ourselves the first boss key in the whole entire game. And then this means about the fact that the actual big treasure chest will start to able to wiggle up a notch. And this means we've already got about 3 more boss keys left in the actual worlds themselves. So basically, Excitement Central has been 100% complete. So naturally, we got every single items and everything on that world. So I guess we'll pretty much get things off here. So join me until Wednesday, or this Wednesday I should say, on more of Let's Play of Wario World, is the fact that we are moving on to the forms of the next world, which is World 2. Not exactly sure what that name is though, but we'll see. So see you guys then. Later fellas.